Welcome to Cross Border Interviews, the show where we dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Our mission on this show is quite simple: shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. And for today's episode, we are honored to be sitting down and chatting with Coalhurst, Alberta Councillor Deborah Florence. In 2013, Coalhurst celebrated its centennial, and in 2025, it will mark 30 years since the town being reincorporated as a community. In 2035, the town will honor the 100th anniversary of the Imperial Mine explosion and the lives of those who were lost and affected by that great tragedy. Coalhurst invites everyone from coast to coast to coast to learn more about their community and its deep history, and about the great people who've helped shape it over the last century, and what they've done to honor their past while also looking forward to a bright future of continued growth and sustainability. Deputy Mayor, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about yourself and talking about your great community of the town of Coalhurst. But before we talk about the town, as I always do, I want to get to know the person behind the persona a little bit. So I've got to ask a very simple, straightforward question, and you are now my 852nd person I get to ask this to, and that is, where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Deb?
Great question. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on this show and for the important work that you do, shining a light on municipal politics. I would say that what kind of brought me to this point is I'm going to echo what I've heard a lot of people say on the show is the values my parents instilled in me. And so just having the value of building a longer table, not a bigger fence, and kind of opening up your home and your heart and volunteer service. And so that's been a big part of it. And then I guess I met my husband. We were married. We thought we were so old, but we were married quite young in 2010. And then we moved to Coalhurst in 2011. I was raised outside of town. So we've always had a heart for our community. And I guess it's always been a value of ours and of mine. I'm taking Jeff with me, but a value of
The
of
royal
mine
we.
that, yeah, I know. You're coming. We're in this together. It's really on each one of us to create the kind of community that we want to live in. And that, we really do owe it to, each thing that we're doing at that point in life to be a part of it and to give where we can. And so we've always had a heart for the community, and it started a long time ago, over a decade ago. So just generally volunteering for events. Jeff joined the fire department and was working as a volunteer firefighter. I was volunteering for several different things in just for events and informal capacities. It kind of led to me volunteering for our town's miners' days, which is like I'll say like Whoop Up Days to Lethbridge or like the Stampede to Calgary. And so that was great. I got to meet a lot more people. And then during that time also I was the Director of Disaster Social Services and Transportation for the Alberta Emergency Management Agency in Coalhurst as well. And then just kind of, staying in touch with the community. We started to raise our kids, getting involved in the schools, different things like that. And then I guess my volunteerism actually led to employment with the town of Coalhurst, I always thought this was a super unique story, but it's interesting to hear that there are other municipal councillors who have transitioned from the role of employee to councillor or from a role of councillor to CAO or something like that. So I believe that my volunteerism and the work that I was doing in the community, specifically with our miners' days, led me to apply for the position with the town, which was at the time it was a recreation coordinator. We're a small town, and so it was a part-time job. And the reason why I want to say that is because I want to hopefully talk more about that later in like proper supports and things like
Yep.
that. But it led to my work at the town. And I worked there until 2021. I guess in 2020, I was laid off as a result of COVID. But throughout that process of volunteering, seeing my husband, being a part of this organization that did a lot for the town of Coalhurst, and then from working in the town to just kind of seeing the areas that needed improvement. And I also wanted to preface this earlier with everything I'm saying is with much respect. I don't mean to throw shade on anybody in the past. It's just this is what I've observed in my journey. And so I COVID happened. COVID is I really don't like to admit that COVID is the breaking point, but I think that for a lot of us, that's when things really came to head, right?
A
But
lot of people ran
so
in that election in 2021 because of COVID, right? Because they saw a path forward, and I understand where you're coming from because the story is not unique in that sense. It's unique for you, but for other
yeah.
people, they got involved because of COVID, right?
Totally, totally, totally. And I think that's, again, I think municipal politics, like a lot of people don't pay attention until it's reactive. And so that was a turning point. And just briefly, if you'll humor me, when the election happened in 2021, 60% or 60% of councillors across Alberta, I believe, were new. And so that just goes to show that there was a huge shakeup after that big event, right? And people were really paying attention. People were really paying attention to who they elected, which it's a double-edged sword. I do appreciate that people were more engaged than ever before, obviously for a whole variety of reasons that I hope we don't talk about on this show.
We will not. But I want to pick up on a few things that you've said in that opening statement there.
Yeah.
Was mom and dad political? Where'd you get your political bug from?
I would say that my dad and his entire family are very in tune with what's happening in the world, and not just like the world, but like locally, provincially, federally in the world. And it's always been like just dinner conversations and stuff, right? Like our just what's happening and stuff. And I will say also, there was a time in my life where I felt very compelled. I was probably, I don't know, about 14, and I felt very compelled to go like do something and change the world. You're a young girl and you have all these things. So I wanted to go overseas and do some like mission work. I want to go build a house or something. I didn't know where. I had no plan. I just like felt this. And my dad sat me down and he's like, listen, this is the dreams of a young girl with no. But he was like, listen, I love that you want to do that. But there's a lot of work to do right here in your backyard. Look at our demographic, look where we live, look at the people in our community. At that time, he took me to volunteer in Lethbridge. We're about 5 minutes outside of Lethbridge at Streets Alive, which was an outreach that served people who were homeless. And so that was really eye-opening for me. And I would say that was also like the flavor of how he approached life. So like,
So
yes, but here, look at this. What are you going to do about this?
So where did the political bug come from? Because it doesn't sound like anyone actually put their name on the ballot until Deb came around in 2021 to put her name on the ballot. Was it something that you had thought about prior to entering into elected office in 2021, or was it the furthest thing from your mind? Because being involved through volunteerism is great, but taking that next step and putting your name on the ballot, that's a completely new gambit. What was it about that political arena that you said, like my father said, to help the people in Lethbridge, I can serve the people of Coalhurst in the best capacity I think I can at the council table?
Yeah, thank you. So again, with my time volunteering and working at the town, um, I guess I really believe in working within the mandate of your role. And so I felt that I had done everything I could within these roles, but there was still more to do. And I felt that I could be somebody to fill that role. Um,
Did you
and
know
so
as someone who had worked behind the scenes, and by behind the scenes I mean as administration, you got to see the like how the sausage was made, if you want to use that analogy so quickly. Um, Prior to putting your name on the ballot, did you do any background information for yourself? Did you start looking at budgets? Did you start looking at council meetings? What did you prepare yourself, or how did you prepare yourself to ensure that if you got elected in 2021, you're not going in there blindly? Because sometimes it's drinking from the fire hose once you get elected.
totally. No, I couldn't agree more. So to prepare myself, and again, stop me if I'm veering off, but to prepare myself, I really considered, first of all, I did a deep internal look. And I was like, is this something that you want for yourself? And I decided, yes, this is something you want for yourself. Like it might not always be good. The second thing that I did, and I think again, just because of who I am as a person, I'm very information seeking. And so in the town and again through just being a citizen, I found that information was very hard to find. And so I was always asking questions and being inquisitive. And then even working as a volunteer closely with the town, it was very difficult. And so again, I guess I was always information seeking. So like I am the person that loves a policy book. so even in any of my jobs, I'm like, I love that thing. Like I want to go into it and find the answer I'm looking for and, go from there. I think actually that more people feel like that. They want to information find for themselves, right? It shouldn't be that hard.
Can I ask a
And
very
so,
pointed question right now as a
yes,
joke? But are you one of
yes,
those counselors that has the MGA sitting on their council table right in front of them
yes,
during council meetings? Like, well,
yes,
according to the MGA,
yes, I am. I
really
will own that wholeheartedly. Yes.
good
And
for
because
you.
I am I am process driven. And you know what? I know that sometimes drives people nuts, but yeah, I am. And because I think that sometimes things can veer off. And then if you just and politely, it's not like I'm slamming the book, but like, yeah, just bring up according to the MGA, right? Um, yeah, but I am that person. I admit.
Okay, well, good for you. I like a process-driven counselor because that's what we need more of. I want to just talk about
I want
something.
to say a few more
No,
things. So with
go
that, I
ahead. Yeah,
did
that's
prepare
what I was
myself.
good. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I watched meetings, but also as a staff member, I guess I had the chance to present in meetings and see how that information was taken in. And I guess maybe that's where I seen another deficit and a gap between administration and council. And this is something that I say very often, but it was very annoying to me on that end, and it's very annoying to me on this end now still. But we're working to fix it, and we're doing very good at it. But to stand side by side and as a united front with your administration team and not toe to toe. So yes, asking questions, but not like it's not combative, right? Like we're all working together.
Yeah.
And so that's something I've had to learn, by the way. I did not start out that way. And then I guess to prepare myself too, I was very well informed on the budget and the financial statements because I that was important to me to know. And then I had a really good understanding of recreation in our town because that was what I volunteered and worked in. But I also had a really good understanding of our deficits. Again, lots of opportunity, but just where there could be changes. And so with that all, there was a by-election in I even looked this up earlier. Don't quote me, 2017. And part of me was like, do I quit my job and run it? And then at that time, I was like, of course, no, 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 no. You keep working your job because you're doing what you can right now. And then again with COVID, everything just kind of hit the fan. Um, I was yeah, and it kind of led to me putting my papers in. And of course, once you do that, you can't be an employee. So
What was that moment like seeing your name on the ballot? Because I can remember my very first time seeing my name on the ballot, and it is so surreal because you literally are looking at it going, what have I done? That's what I did. Or, oh God, what if I'm the only one who votes for me? What was it for you?
yeah, no, it was well, my at the time my brother lived in town, so I knew there was going to be two votes on the ballot.
Not even your husband
But
would vote
yeah,
for you?
no. Well, he works away a lot, so I'm not. He had to do advance elections, and at that time, actually, and I don't want to throw shade, but because things were so archaic in the town, these things weren't always clearly laid out, and it was kind of hard to advance vote. Um, and
Plus, it was
so,
COVID-19, and there was a lot of challenges around that as well. So
yeah,
there
that's
was
a
a
nicer
lot
way
of
to say it. Good work.
external circumstances going on in that
Oh, I
election.
love that. I love how you eloquently said that. Yes, no, and I can appreciate that too. And again, like I think that for me, especially right now in my walk, and what I've learned is that, we just people did with what they had, right?
Yeah.
And I'm doing with what I have. And I'm certain in 10 years that someone will be like, well, why did that previous council do that? Well, there was a reason, but that's just how it goes, I suppose. And then so lastly, I wanted to say just with the how did it feel to have your name on a ballot? Like incredibly humbling, I would say. And I think that part of that too is Ian McCormick talks about this in one of his books, is like the role of ego. So to a certain degree, actually, you have to have a little bit of ego in order to run. Now, I see ego two-sided. So I see it as you think a lot about yourself. But I mean, do you think very highly of yourself or do you think very lowly of yourself? But either way, you're thinking a lot about yourself. And your girl's a Debbie Downer. And so sometimes I can think a little bit lowly of myself. And so my thoughts are seeing it on the ballot was a lot of imposter syndrome. And, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. And so, like, yeah, it's nerve-wracking, but also just, again, that little bit of ego, you still did it, you still put it forward. So, like, I don't want to say it's arrogance, but there's a little part of you that's like, heck yes, heck yes. Did I describe that accurately?
You did, and now I'm going to say this to the person I know is probably going to be listening to this because I'm going to tell him that he just got name dropped. Ian McCormack talking about ego? What? What are you talking about? As someone who's written 3 books now, he probably has a big ego as well.
I hope I take my quotes with a big bucket of salt.
I say that respectfully. Him and I are good friends. So I want to
I
talk.
really appreciated his book and his insights, actually. He was one of the most impactful people on me at the start of this journey.
Oh wow, good.
Yeah,
I'll have to tell him that when I see him this week, as of recording this week.
please do.
Um,
Please do.
I want to turn to the role of counsel for a few seconds and the
Mhm.
role that you put yourself into as a counselor. Now, you've had to make some very tough choices around that council table, I can imagine. Budgets are never easy. Land use bylaws are never simple. There's always external factors that come into play. The other issue is no matter what decision you take on an issue, there's always going to be those naysayers. There's always going to be a percentage of the population say, you did it wrong. You should have done it this way. The backseat, the armchair experts. How do you make the best decisions for council or for your community based on the information you provided? Because you can only do so much with the information you're provided, but at the end of the day, you have to make that tough choice. How do you make those tough choices around that council table?
Yeah. Well, when you ask this question, I hear it in two parts. So, there's a whole nother part to this about the good information that's provided in order to make good governance decisions. But for me personally, in order to feel like I can make a good decision and that I can articulate why I made that decision, I need to feel like I have all the information from multiple perspectives. And
Is that hard?
and then again, yeah, it is hard. And I think that again, with that piece of it's something that's improved over um, time on this term. But I think that one of the things that historically councils have struggled with, and again, because small towns, we can get a little bit stuck and stagnant, is the way things are presented and what's presented, right? And especially if something's been the same way for 10 years and it's been the same team or something like that, right? It just so I think that a big part of it is making so you ask for the right information. And so again, I keep shifting into like a large scale thing instead of just me, but like, how can you and your council request that information differently from your administration? And for us, we ask for information that aligns with our strategic plan, the financial policy, people, I'm not saying that right, but like basically the implications that it is. And to me, that checks those boxes as well. If I don't understand something, I do my own independent research. And then with that, I think this also annoys people sometimes. I don't like it when people talk just for the sake of talking, but I do believe that if I voted in a certain way, that I have a duty to articulate why I did that. And so if I've made a decision, I will articulate it. And anybody can come talk to me about that decision, and I will tell you why I've made that decision and what information was presented to me to make that decision. And honestly, that's pretty much it. Like I think that it's on us to represent the voices of our community, and that's why we're at the table. But we're supposed to we're not supposed to, we are to make decisions based on the whole of the community. And that is so much easier said than done, especially when the voices of dissent are loud and the voices of dissent, are saying things that are true, but maybe they don't have the whole big picture of what's been provided to council, right? And so I think that we're in a for one, I think that in this day and age in general, I think that we have a duty to share more information than ever before because we're in a time of sharing more information than ever before, and we want to take people with us on the journey of decision making. But however, we have been
Can I
entrusted to
interject
make
there for a
decisions.
second?
Yes, please do.
So
Please stop me.
I get a, I get to paint a very broad stroke on this show, and I always do, and I always get the emails. So I'm going to say this before I ask this question. For those who are about to hear this question, please forward your emails to me, not the deputy mayor, because this is Chris Brown asking the question, and she is going to give her response to my question because I'm going to paint a very broad stroke here. In Canada, there is an apathetic nature when it comes to municipal politics. You talked about it earlier in your opening statement about being more reactive than proactive. People don't have the time to sit in front of a YouTube channel or go to a council meeting and sit there for 6 hours and learn what's going on, or an hour, or however long the meetings are. So when things come up, they don't have an opinion. That's why you've been elected. You've been elected to make the tough decisions. But there are some occasions where you have to ask people what they feel. You cannot rely solely on administration. Again, administration, I love you. I was part of them. I know the reports that you have to make, and they're very detailed. But sometimes the administration and what the public wants are opposing factors. Who wins in that sense, in your opinion? Is it the people or is it the administration? Or how do you make those tough decisions? Because at the end of the day, that is the toughest decision. If council, administration, I should say, puts a report in front of you saying we want X and count and the vocal majority, because that's what usually is the ones that are loudest, say we want Y, who wins? Or do you have to find a common balance as a council? Or
Yeah, that's a okay, I'm going to try to take a shot at that one. So I guess just in the spirit of standing aligned with council, but also standing in alignment with our community.
yeah,
I have a few things like that. So first, I would say nobody wins and nobody loses. That's I guess, and I hear what you're saying, but just maybe even changing the language a little bit on that versus like it's not like who wins. We're going to meet in the middle and collaborate. And I think that collaboration is the job of the elected official. And then just briefly, I guess like philosophically, you know, do we believe that we are elected to represent all the voices in our community, or do we believe that we were elected because the people believe that our voice best represents the community? And so sometimes, yeah, I believe in checking in with people. Oh my gosh, I call subject matters all the time. I'm like, there's this policy here, tell me more about this. But at the same time, there's a certain degree when, again, you have elected me, and obviously you see where I believe, you have elected me because you believe that I am going to make the best decision and represent the voices of the community based on who I am. And also because I have proven that I will carry those voices to the council table.
and this is
Did
why
that
you're
answer
the
your
elected.
question?
It does, and that's why you're the elected official, and I'm not. I'm just the show host who gets to ask the tough questions. Then you get to tell me that you shouldn't have asked it that way, and I appreciate that
Sorry.
because no, but I like that because this is how I learned. Because you're right. You need to find a not a compromise, but you need to bring the two sides together to make the
Yeah.
community whole. So that way, one side doesn't feel like they're losing out, and you have to make sure everyone feels, which is quite hard. And I wish you the best in the last few
Yeah,
months and
no,
into
totally. And honestly, I think, sorry, I cut people off, so just don't mind
that's
me. But yeah, and I think it really comes down to basic communication skills. I have had, and day one, I wouldn't have been saying this. I would have been like, ah. So like, I have learned so much on this council term. It's actually made my marriage better because I've learned how to like fight nicely, like, and to be able to have conversations, tough conversations, and then to turn the page and let it go. Like I say this now, but sometimes I'm like, turn the page, turn the page, turn the page. And I miss what someone was saying because I'm like, move on. And so I think that it's easier said than done.
do the tough choice.
I will also say
Can I
though,
just add on to that before you jump in?
yes, please, yeah.
Do the tough choices, do the tough decisions get easier as time goes on? Or are you still finding those tough decisions as hard as day one as we are entering into the last few months of this term?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Chris. I think that my confidence in the tough decisions and the tough conversations is growing as my comprehension grows. I will say, though, I think that as part of continually checking in with the community and making sure that the voices of the community are heard at the table, that it's really important to be in touch with the community and to be continually checking back, both formally and informally, and make sure that you're communicating back to people where possible. And I think that that's very much a role of administration, but also a role personally for each counselor to be passing on information and passing on great information. And so I would say, does it get easier? Not necessarily, because you still want to consider the breadth and depth of what people are saying to you and not take it flippantly or lightly. But at the same time, I think as your comprehension and knowledge grows in the ways of processes and procedures at the municipal level, you have a greater understanding of it. And I think that brings confidence. So knowledge is power, baby. Like I just think that the more you know, the better decisions you have. But I think that making those tough decisions will and communicating that back to residents will always be something that's hard for me because I'm empathetic. I'm a taxpayer. My kids go to school here. We live here. My family lives here. I get it. It's me too, right? And so yeah, just I think understanding that the tough decisions impact me too.
I want to turn to the town as a whole. And before I do
Sure.
that, I'm going to just preface this line of questioning with the
Sure.
following. So please bear with me while I go through this little preamble. This is a conversation between the deputy mayor and myself. This is not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not even a policy of council. This is her opinion and her opinion alone. Now, it may line up with what's going on at council, but at the end of the day, it's her opinion and her opinion alone. She needs a majority of council members to vote in favor or against any motion, policy, or bylaw to enact it or to reject it. So again, this is her opinion. Now, I'm also going to preface this line of questioning a little bit as well. The deputy mayor has announced via social media that she will be running for mayor in the upcoming election. Now, this is for anyone who is also thinking about running or has put their name on the ballot. If you want to be on the show, because we know we want to give all candidates the quality of airtime that we're giving to the deputy mayor right now, please reach out to us and we will have you on the show. There is my due diligence on that part. So you cannot accuse me of playing favorites with the deputy mayor. If you want to come on the show and talk about the future of Coalhurst, please be sure to reach out to us. But right now, we're talking to the deputy mayor. Deputy mayor, let's chat.
Yes.
In your
Awesome. I love it.
opinion, as of the last few weeks of June, the middle of June 2025, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing the town of Coalhurst today? Or challenges?
Challenges, yeah, that's a great question. I could go on about this for a while. I did make a few notes about this though, because I knew you were going to ask this question. So I think that some of our challenges that have been and continue to be are modernization. So ensuring that our policies are relevant, our governance structures are effective and relevant, and then putting in controls around that, around measurements, KPIs, reviewing things, not just putting things in place where they sit on a shelf for 10 years. I think, and that's where my heart lies, especially with, again, with my journey. I think that is so important to get that foundational work right. And I will also say that our council collectively, and our administration has done such a good job of that, and I'm just blown away. And so I think on a broader scale, we also face pressures to keep up with regional growth. We are a small town on the cusp of Lethbridge. And so but we also want to preserve what makes us unique as a small town. And so we need to think about smart planning, careful financial stewardship, business growth, and really just trying to grow our non-residential tax base while still maintaining our unique small town feel, as well as expanding our recreation services. Because I think that, again, our unique position, proximity, sorry, to Lethbridge is people really move here as a community of choice, right? They want to be outside of the big city. And I think that's for that small town character and that small town charm.
Do you consider Coalhurst a bedroom community?
That is my most like disliked term. I'm like, we are not a bedroom community. But yes, I actually so I say no, I don't like that. But in a sense, yes, we are. But it's I think it's actually something that's really great for us because a lot of small towns right now are in very similar positions with us as we are. Small towns struggling to get businesses, struggling to get recreation stuff, and maintaining reasonable taxes with the ever rising cost of everything, goods, services. While people want more, the costs keep going up, and we're not really, I guess people are saying we're not really doing more, but really, I mean, it's just costs are going up. And so, um,
Can I ask a follow-up question on that?
yes, please.
Okay, I'm gonna harken back because I'm gonna talk about affordability in a few minutes, but I wanted to go back
Yeah.
to your original challenge, which is modernization.
Yes.
Now, I understand that, you understand that. How does the modernization of the town of Coalhurst benefit the residents of Coalhurst? Because that's not something that's tangible. Like you fix a pothole, people can see the pothole being fixed. You fix a pipe, you can see the water is now coming out a little bit cleaner or a little bit faster. How does the modernization around and I don't want to say administration, but the what's going on in the background, how does that benefit the people of Coalhurst, do you think? And how has this term council, because we're talking as your deputy mayor right now, how has that
Mhm.
process come to where we are right now? Do you feel like you've done enough or do you think you could still do more?
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of modernization and how it will help residents, I think that it's about access to information. So I truly believe, again, that people want to be able to find information on their own and self-answer questions. So that's when you're like, my neighbor's dog is barking, and you try to look up the noise bylaw, and you can't find a noise bylaw, or you can't even find the bylaws, right? So then you're like, I think you're frustrated, and I think that then feeds the gap between council and the community, right? And I think everything like this contributes to the gap, right? So access to information is huge. And then I think just again, because we want people to be good residents. And so I think that, if we have our community standards, which are, the everybody has them. It's your good community bylaw. So we want that information easily there because we want good neighbors. And so like even that is the very crux of it. I guess the other thing is too, is it just in my experience is, how easy is it to get in touch with administration or council about issues? Again, and this kind of speaks to both the modernization of archaic policies, but also the transparency and communication with residents. Is like when we get a paper agenda, or council got a paper agenda 10 years ago, nobody has access to it. If you happen to stop in at the meeting, you don't really have context, you're just hearing the conversation. And so, again, COVID brought this out, but I think that this isn't unique to our council. I think this is all across municipalities. I'd probably say across Canada, not even just Alberta, is the need and the want to share information. And so recording meetings and allowing people to both watch and have access to meetings via recordings is good. I have a whole bunch of thoughts on if recording meetings actually increases transparency, but that's a soapbox moment. But I think that it's good because we're putting it out there and we're demonstrating like, please come with us. And people are engaging more than ever before. Of course, there's always going to be people that don't engage, or that you can put all the information out there and they won't pick it up. And I won't own that. That is not on me. So I guess in this term, how that came to fruition is really just, I would say each council member, but then collectively as council, because as you know, you don't move things as an individual, you do it as a collective. And so you really have to learn to work well together. And put aside your personal stuff. And so, in order for that to come to fruition, it was a deep look at our practices, which haven't maybe been looked at in quite some time. And that's no shade. It's just because things were in place for a really long time. And I have a sticker right here. It says, because we've always done it this way, with an X on it. And that is like the mantra to my life. And I'm a mover and I'm a shaker. I do that on all my boards. And so it's just kind of that attitude and really looking at things and then making a strategic plan and then steps to make sure that is being done. And I say that like it was this beautiful thing. It was hard. It came at a cost. And we aren't done. Yes, we've come a long way, a long, long way. And I think that, and again, I want to be very careful what I say about administration, but I think, and this is a belief I have, is the right people in the right places makes all the difference. And so I think that when you have really great staff who are really skilled, they can do really great things. And then council has to trust that the work is being done. And so we have put out a lot more information, even things like, so we're recording now, we do council highlights, we have the opportunity to share things on social media. I do wish more councillors would share. But because I really do believe it's on us as council as well to contribute to the good communication, not to overstep into administration's role, not to facilitate communication outside of where it should be happening, but to make sure that we're doing the work too. And that I think that also contributes then to closing the gap between
Are people picking it up though? He's doing all this,
admin.
doing all this information, putting all this information out there is great. But if people are still not getting it, then is it a thankless task? Because understandable, information is great. Getting information at the tip of your fingers is great. We all have these little phones that we all walk around with, and we all talk
Yeah.
on them, and we all access the internet on them. But if people aren't utilizing it in the way that they can get the information to their hands, then is it a thankless job that you're doing right now? Or do you find that the people of Coalhurst are benefiting because you are putting out the information?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of both, to be honest. And I think generally, yes, the people are benefiting from the information that's being put out, and I think that we're seeing a rise in real engagement. And so that I guess I would say with that, then instead of just the community group Facebook posts, that the communication is going through the right channels. Emails are coming in through the town, and I think that's like a marker of success that things have improved because people now know where to send things. But I think you're right. I think there's still um, times when you can do everything you can and people still won't pick up that information. And I didn't mean to be flippant earlier when I said that isn't on me. It's just because like I feel really bad about that when people say I didn't hear about this. And it's like, well, like
The
it was
worst
out there
thing
and we asked for everything we could
I
do.
will say the thing that you don't want to say because I will say it numerous times. Municipalities can only go 99% of the way. There's some responsibility on the responsibility of the resident to go at least 1% of the way. I worked for a municipality and I was the communications and marketing. And I can tell you, you can put it on the radio, you can put it in the newspaper, you can put it on the website, you can put it on social media, you can send out flyers, you can literally post it on digital boards. There's always going to be a section of the people who say, I didn't know. And it's at some point of the responsibility of the residents to understand what's going on in their community. You are
Yep.
only as good as the information that you can provide, and if people don't want to get that information, you can't. You can literally lead the horse to water, but you cannot make it drink.
Totally, totally. And I don't want to completely put that on the people. I do want to own that, especially in a community where again, we have had some archaic things, but we are working on it. So yes, I couldn't agree more. I honestly couldn't. And so I think that's an important too. But I will say, until I was fully immersed in this, town counselor, like working at the town, then counselor role, I wouldn't have necessarily known that either. And so
Yeah,
I don't like throw shade at people, but I think that often something happens and then you get in are becoming more engaged. And so that's just, I guess that's just the reality of it because I think also there's some certain what you talked about with apathy because again, you've done the thing, you did the elections, like, do your work. We'll see you in 4 years, right? And actually, I think there's split mind on that too, because a lot of people cry for engagement, and the other half of people are like, go do the work. And so it's a balance, right?
certainly is. I want to go back to one of the things that you talked about earlier on in the episode, the interview, I should say, and that is around recreation. Now, you were a part of the administration that was recreation. COVID-19 kind of changed the name of the game. You were laid off, and then you decided to run for council. In a small community like Coalhurst, where does recreation rank? Because with it being, and again, I know you hate this term, but I'm going to have to use it a little bit during this part of the
Go for it.
question. But the bedroom community of Coalhurst, with it being so
Yeah,
close to Lethbridge, you don't, I'm assuming, have a large recreational program service that you can offer, or do you feel like even though you are a bedroom community, you have to offer those services to the people of Coalhurst because that's what a municipality is supposed to do?
totally, totally. Thank you for bringing this up because it flagged me for something that I was going to say earlier with the bedroom community thing. If I could quickly say that, and then I actually have an answer for the recreation part too. So yeah, so we are like we have a lot of small towns near us, Nobleford, Picture Butte, and when we get together, we are all talking about we want more businesses, we want more recreation, we all want the same things, right? And we're struggling with our budgets. I think that we're very unique in the fact that we are right outside of Lethbridge. So while some people see that as a negative, I actually see that as a positive because, you know, in terms of like, so I don't want to say no, we don't do recreation here, but I'm just saying like in terms of like, we all know that pools cost a lot of money. And from my front
What?
door
What? I
to
thought they're
the
cheap.
core.
I thought they're cheap. Come on. I thought they're like $100 and you can install a brand new outdoor in-ground pool.
Well, and even if they're gifted to you by a group, I mean, there's still operational costs, right? And that's another thing where I think that we just have so much information that we need to make sure we're sharing with people. And so but from my front door to the Cor Van Ray, or oh my goodness, nope, it's not called that anymore. The swimming pool on the west side is about 5 minutes. And so like I don't mean to be like, no, residents, we're not ever building a pool, but like it is not like that would, to me, that is no longer a priority for a pool because yes, we can access it there. Do I think that we should have unique recreation amenities in Coalhurst? Absolutely. Absolutely. Which leads me to the second part of that question, if I may. So, recreation in Coalhurst and in small towns has always been done by volunteers. Krista was talking about this when I was watching her episode last week, and it's, the 10% that are doing everything. And so that I think to me was one of the main issues that I seen with volunteering specifically for Miners Days, because Miners Days was a volunteer gig, yes, but it was also like a 30-hour a week volunteer gig. Like it was, I mean, and so I think that what happens is, and again, I don't think we're unique, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but there's not really been consideration given to recreation as like a pillar of the community in the same way that roads, sewer, and those core services have. And so we have really ridden the backs of volunteers and groups, not on purpose, to have these recreational opportunities. And I'm not talking about like parks, I'm talking about like events and things like that, right? And I think what we've seen, and again, we're not unique, is great burnout from that. And not great retention, right? And
Yes.
so for me, one of the things that I really wanted to see is the town um, take on more of that work with the big events, because it was, for one, it was these volunteers fundraising, doing all this stuff. But at the same time, I still think that you still want to have places, like if people want to rise up and do an event, like you can't be like, no, that's only the town's job. Like you still want to create places for people to rise up and empower them. But recreation for me was really like a missing pillar in Coalhurst. However, I also have the understanding that it is expensive and we are a small town, right? And so how much do you want to pay for that? And so that's been really unique in our community, and just trying to find ways to solve that.
Well,
So, of course, good planning starts with good documents. And so it started with talking to the people, seeing what they wanted, recreation master plan. And it's the one thing I've learned. Actually, I'm still learning it, but patience. Oh my goodness, everything takes so long in municipal governance. I will never learn that. So I will have to continue learning that. And so, what's important to me about this is setting the good groundwork and the framework so that you can build on that for years to come. Because it's not just recreation tomorrow or Miners Days this summer. It's in 30 years. What are we going to have in this community, that we're going to be doing? Or how are we going to make sure the community hall, that we're saving enough money so that when, things go, that we can fix them, right? And so it's not events, it's not just walking trails, it's a huge umbrella, and it's something that, as a small town, that is, I would say, maybe a little bit new to us. And even I would say the volunteering that led to my recreation role, like it's there was an expectation on myself, and again, I'm not to do everything. Well, there's now an employee, like fix the recreation problems in town, and that's not it either. And so when you look at other pillars, like let's say roads and water, you have a whole team for that. And so I think even just taking our residents along with us as we build this program, um, if they're willing to spend on it, then yeah. And so
well,
that's it. I'll stop rambling now, Chris.
no, you have to work in conjunction as well, right? Because the
Yeah.
municipality, again, going back to the communications part of this conversation, the municipality can only go so much because you only have a limited supply of money. You can't run deficits every year as much as people think municipalities
No,
do.
terrible idea.
You can't. So therefore,
That's
you
terrible
can't
idea.
you can't hold events every week. You can't have in-ground pools every like start an in-ground pool and make it profitable. Recreation is, and you know this, just probably seeing it. Recreation is one of the line items in every budget that is a deficit loser, right? It is the one thing that you spend money on not getting an ROI because you spend money to make people do things in your community. It's hard. I completely
It
understand
is.
that. But I'm
Yep.
cautious of time and I want to
Yes.
turn to the
Sorry.
flip side. No, God, no. I love this
Yes.
conversation. I want to turn to the original question, but I want to flip it on its head
Yes.
for a second because
Please do.
modernization, the proximity development of your community to Lethbridge challenges within itself. But what's the opportunities? What's the thing you look at and you say, you know what, we do have our challenges, but we have this going right for us. What is that positive thing that goes right in Coalhurst?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love this question. Their opportunities are vast, like so vast. But again, I'm going to talk about proximity for a second here. So we are well placed on Highway 3. We are right off of Highway 3, in fact. We have a rail line that runs along Highway 3 right outside of our town. Um,
And in the
I
right outside and right at the entrance of your town as
At the
well.
entrance. I know that darn entrance. Anyway, without getting into the entrance details, no, but I think we're well positioned on Highway 3 to experience economic growth. And I think that if we're intentional about that, we can tap into that. I also think that there's a few big things like the federal government has the Prairies to Pacific corridor. There's the economic corridor from like that's I'm
The
saying it
Crow's
wrong.
Nest Pass.
Yes, yeah, the economic
Yes.
corridor and specifically the ag corridor in our area.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
I feel like if Peter Corselli from
yes,
Alberta,
South Road.
South Crow would be yelling at us and saying, "It's this is what it's called." Peter, we apologize
Yeah,
immensely.
agri. Yeah, yeah, no, totally. And so I think that's a huge opportunity. I think that we have opportunities to create spaces where people want to invest and where ideas can take off. I think we have huge community or opportunities for business growth, both within our town boundary, but with also in partnership. I
Yeah,
think that one of the things that we need to look at being surrounded. Yes, we're close to Lethbridge, but we're surrounded on all sides by Lethbridge County. Is how can we tap into that to experience growth for both of us. They want that too. And so I think there's opportunity there. I also think that we have opportunity to improve access to recreation, as we talked about. I think there's opportunity to increase and a need to improve attainable housing and seniors housing. As well, I think that I think that the thing that makes Coalhurst really unique and the thing I love about Coalhurst, this is going to sound so cliche, but it's like the people, right? And their willingness to care for each other and to be a part of this small town and to maintain the spirit of uniqueness. And I really think that with that, I think we have opportunity to again to not do everything, but to create spaces where people can really prosper and to allow people to prosper both business wise, but also like provide, opportunities for, a community member to have their idea come to life about starting a basketball camp and then, being able to support that or however that looks. And I really think that we are also shifting from an attitude of, well, the town should do everything to where we're seeing people rise up. And let me tell you, I am here for it. I love it so much. I don't want to ride the backs of volunteers. I don't want to, you know, burn people out, but I just love it when people do things in their community and they do it because they want to and because it's bringing them joy and it's benefiting others, whether it's somebody doing a community garage sale for the first time ever because nobody's done it in 5 years, or whether it's starting a silent auction or doing a Santa's Gone Loony. Like I just it actually just, oh yeah.
I want to turn to my favorite subject though, because it is summer and that is the best time for events to happen, to start taking place. Now, I know that the town of Coalhurst is celebrating their 30th anniversary of being reincorporated as a town. You have minor days coming up in about 10 years' time. You're going to be celebrating, or not celebrating, but recognizing the 100th
Right.
anniversary of the Imperial Mine explosion. What can people do in Coalhurst during the summer?
Oh, I love that. Summertime in Coalhurst is my favorite. Okay, so we typically have a very great Canada Day celebration, and I love that we do it in our community. And then we don't have to go to Lethbridge where it's busy. And so we have that on July 1st, and it's usually all the good stuff: bouncy castles, water fun, games, events for the whole family. And then, as you mentioned, we do have our much loved Coalhurst Miners Days on July 26th and 27th. And so we have our pancake breakfast, our parade, and a few other activities going around town. We have our party in the park, which is again a lot of fun for families, face painting, balloons, bouncy castles, all of the things. And actually, the businesses in town often participate too and will offer discounts. And so it's just a really great time in town and lots of foot traffic, and it's super fun. So if you are around, please come and join us. That would be awesome.
Hey, that's the weekend of my birthday, so yes, I will be coming to Miners Day
Oh,
this year. Of course, come on, can't beat that. Come
what
on.
else would you do? Yeah. And then I love that you mentioned the 30th anniversary of being reincorporated as a town. And I love that you clearly know your history. Yeah. And so this is really cool. And it just I think it's so great to recognize and celebrate and give credit where credit's due. And this is just a way we can celebrate, our little town and bring unity an honor to it, right? And Coalhurst is such a cool little community because it's not like Fort McLeod where you're walking around and it's like this historic building, because we burned so often back in the day, and also because it was very transient, right, as a mining community. So people would kind of pick up and leave. And so I love Miners Days because it is a reflection of our history, and it's just a celebration of the past and the future. And obviously, as somebody who's worked with Miners Days, I'm a little bit biased. I love it.
Which you
And so
should be
anyway,
as a
yeah,
counselor.
yeah.
You should love being the fact that there's an event
I
like
love
that.
it. And I love the 30th year anniversary, and then I totally digress. So thank you for letting me answer your questions for so long, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Hey,
And this was good to
I
reel it
still
in.
have one last question for you. One
Okay,
last question, and it's the very important question. And
shoot,
this
I'm
is the
gonna fail it.
$1 million question. So you have to get this right because this knocks it out of the park. And I think you've
Yeah.
encapsulated it a little bit, but give me the elevator pitch. Why is Coalhurst such a unique place to live, to work, and to raise a family?
Yeah, Coalhurst is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. And I think it's again, it's that small town feel. And so that's not unique to us. It's all small towns have that. But Coalhurst is safe. Coalhurst is the kind of community where people are outside, they're waving, they're keeping an eye on your kids. They're people are texting you if, your garage door is open, or, your kid is skipping class. And I just love that. It's the kind of community where, you can run over and borrow a cup of sugar and not feel awkward about it. And I think that, what makes it a great place to live, is both the fact that it is removed from the big city, but also so close to the city. And I think we have the unique small town character and all those friendly small town things, while still being able to, not drive for an hour to probably, if you're, a lot of people work in the city. So that's why I'm paintbrushing that with a very bold statement. And then lastly, because it's the greatest town in Southern Alberta, we have a huge amount of heart. We have a huge amount of ownership. Coalhurst might not have a lot of historical buildings, but the pride and community that people have, and the way that is shared is amazing. And so, yeah.
Deputy Mayor, Counselor, all around amazing person. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for taking time, taking almost an hour out of your day to sit down with me and do this interview. It was an honor. It was a pleasure. And I look forward to having continued conversations as we head into election season. But thank you so much for coming on and talking about your great community of Coalhurst, Alberta. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you again for the work you do. Thank you for letting me take up so much of your time. And thank you for the gentle cues to wrap it up. And I wish you success in your trip. And I can't wait to hear more about it.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into the world of Alberta municipal politics. Now, to stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or by visiting us on YouTube if you're watching us there, and hit that subscribe button. Never miss an upcoming episode during the summer months. And to also check back on past episodes of the show before our return in September. Now, your support means the world to us. So share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with a brand new episode of Cross Border Interviews shortly. Till then, everyone.